Emily's mornings always followed the same quiet rhythm. She would walk the narrow sidewalk lined with maple trees, their leaves whispering against the morning breeze, and make her way to the bus stop that carried her to the small school where she taught. Life for her was routine, and though she smiled often for her students, inside she carried a hollowness that never seemed to fade. It had been nearly a year since her father passed away, yet his absence lingered like a shadow that never moved away from her side. He had been her anchor, the one who believed in her when she doubted herself, and without him, she often felt like a ship adrift without direction. It was on one of these quiet mornings that Emily noticed the dog, sitting by the bench at the bus stop, a small brown dog with tired eyes and fur that seemed worn from waiting. He didn't look around much, nor did he show interest in people passing by. His gaze stayed fixed on the buses that came and left, as if he expected someone to step off at any moment. Emily felt a tug in her chest, but she walked on, thinking perhaps it was just a stray that wandered there for scraps. Days passed, and the sight became routine. The dog was always there, sitting at the same spot, unmoving, unbothered, and waiting. Some mornings it rained, soft drops sliding down Emily's umbrella, and yet the dog remained, soaked but still staring at the buses. Other mornings the sun was sharp, pressing against the pavement, and the dog's breathing seemed heavy, yet he never left. Emily began slowing her steps each day, curious, but also strangely comforted by his presence. One morning, unable to resist her growing concern, she approached. He placed her bag down gently and crouched, extending her hand. The dog glanced at her briefly but then turned away, his eyes locked once again on the passing bus. He wasn't afraid, just uninterested. His loyalty seemed to be tied to something else, someone else. Emily pulled her hand back, a strange ache growing in her chest. That day in class, she found herself distracted. As her students laughed and shared stories, her mind wandered back to the bus stop, to that dog who waited, unmoved by the world around him. She wondered who he was waiting for, what his eyes searched for in the endless stream of buses. Something about it felt too familiar, like looking into a reflection of her own waiting heart, hoping for someone who would never return. The next morning, Emily left earlier, a small paper bag tucked under her arm. Inside were soft dog biscuits and a bottle of water. The dog was already there, as if the night had folded itself around his vigil and then opened without moving him. She set the biscuits down a respectful distance away, the way you might place flowers on a quiet grave, and waited. He sniffed, ate without looking up, then turned his face back to the road. Something in that simple motion felt like a key turning in a locked room inside her chest. Emily began asking around. The florist across the street said the dog had started coming months ago. The bus driver nodded with a tired kindness, and told her he used to see the dog with an older man who rode the early bus every day. They would sit together near the window, the man rubbing the dog's ears while the city yawned awake. One morning the man did not come. The driver had heard whispers that he fell ill and never returned home. After that, the dog kept his seat by the bench, watching each bus like a fragile door that might open into the past. The story was simple, almost too simple to hold the weight it carried. Emily stood at the curb and felt the world narrow to the rhythm of idling engines and the small rise and fall of the dog's breath. She remembered the last time she had held her father's hand in the hospital, while machines traced the slow march of goodbye. After the funeral, she kept expecting to hear his footsteps, to see the shape of him rounding the kitchen doorway. The human heart, she realized, does not accept absence all at once. It bargains with hope, piece by piece, day by day. Rain arrived one afternoon, the kind that begins like a whisper and gathers into a steady song. Emily returned with a cheap blue poncho and draped it over the bench, leaving an opening where the dog lay curled. She set down water and a towel, then eased herself to the other end of the bench, letting the rain purl along the plastic between them. The dog glanced at her, just once, not asking anything and not promising anything, and then rested his head again. It felt like sitting beside another soul at the edge of a long winter, sharing a small fire neither of them fully owned. That night at home, she opened a box of her father's letters, the ones he wrote when she first started teaching. The paper carried the dust of old encouragements. She traced the curve of his handwriting and realized she had been waiting too. Not at a bus stop, but in her own house, listening for a door that would never open. The dog's patience was a mirror, and within it she saw the shape of her own unfinished goodbye. Winter crept in quietly, brushing the edges of the city with frost. Emily had grown used to her morning ritual, carrying food and water to the bus stop, sitting beside the dog, and speaking softly, though she never expected a reply. Sometimes she told him about her students, other times about her father. The dog would listen with stillness, his eyes following the same endless line of buses. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the silence between them began to feel less like emptiness and more like company. One particularly cold morning, Emily arrived to find the dog shivering, his fur damp from the night's snow. Without hesitation, she wrapped her scarf around him, feeling the fragile tremor of his body beneath her fingers. For the first time, he leaned into her touch, not fully, but enough for her to feel the weight of his trust. Something shifted then, a fragile bridge forming between their two lonely worlds. Word of the dog had spread. A passerby stopped to watch and murmured that it was remarkable, the loyalty of animals, how they wait long after their people are gone. Emily nodded, but inside she felt more than admiration, she felt an echo. This was not only loyalty, it was grief made visible. Grief, refusing to surrender to time. She understood it, because she carried the same refusal in her own chest. Days became weeks, and with each passing moment, the dog allowed her a little closer. He began eating only when she was near, drinking water as she sat beside him. One evening, as the last bus pulled away and the street fell silent, Emily whispered into the cold air that maybe it was time to stop waiting. The dog looked at her, and for the first time, his gaze did not follow the buses, but rested on her instead. That night, she brought him home. At first, he wandered through the rooms as if searching for exits, listening for footsteps that would never come. But slowly, he settled into the rhythm of her life, curling at her feet as she graded papers, resting his head on the armrest when she read by the lamp. Emily no longer came home to silence. The house, once heavy with absence, began to breathe again. On her walks now, she still passed the bus stop. Sometimes she paused, remembering the small figure who had waited through seasons of sun and rain. But she no longer saw loneliness there. Instead, she saw a chapter closed with dignity, a promise carried forward. Emily had not filled the space her father left, and the dog had not forgotten his old friend. But together they discovered something quieter, something steadier. Love does not end when the door closes or the bus fails to arrive. Love waits, reshapes itself, and finds new paths to walk. And so each morning, when Emily opened her door, the dog trotted beside her, not waiting anymore, but walking forward to get. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come not from words but from silence. A dog waiting at a bus stop, a woman grieving for her father, two lives bound by loss, finding one another in the quiet spaces between departures and arrivals. Their story reminds us that love does not vanish with absence. It lingers, it transforms, and it waits until we are ready to carry it forward again. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you wish to hear more stories like this, please subscribe to the channel.